on Tuesday, February 17, 2026, for the Metropolitan, Nashville, and Davidson County Council. First is public comment pursuant to Section 844.112 of the Tennessee Code. Annotated time is reserved for public comment on legislative items appearing on this agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak may sign up on the council committee sign-up sheet posted outside the room where the committee is scheduled to meet. Public comment sign-up for the council committee meetings will end immediately before the meeting begins. Public comment is limited to 8 minutes total at council committee meetings, and each speaker is allowed up to 2 minutes to speak. All public comment speakers must present proof of Tennessee residency. Requests for interpretation services and/or accessibility accommodation should be directed to the council office at 615-862-6780. We did not have anybody sign up for public comment today. Was anybody wishing to sign up and wasn't able to, or not, didn't know how? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. The first item of business is a presentation by NDOT on the many architecture and engineering contracts we have up. Yes, and I think that's clerk too, so hopefully your microphone will work, but you may have to move it a little closer to you because it's that one right there. Oh, could you maybe just move it a little? There you go. Thank you. Oh. All right, now try. No. No. All right. I got both clerk 1 and clerk 2 on.
Test. There we go. Okay. Hi, I'm Christy Schnell with the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure. So Metro Procurement competitively solicited for architectural and engineering, or A&E, services with a multi-award indefinite delivery or indefinite quantity, or IDIQ, type of contract using a request for quotation, or RFQ, solicitation method. This contract type is very standard within Metro and is a quick and efficient way to get purchase orders quickly. Some people call IDIQ contracts on-call type of contracts, and these are contracts where project managers can issue multiple task orders or project assignments at any time within the contract term that go against the contract ceiling. The standard Metro requirements were followed, and 30 vendors were qualified and awarded contracts. As a reminder, all Metro contracts are funded with appropriated funding, and we are seeking council approval for the extended contract term. So we were soliciting for technical services from consultants. These project assignments will be awarded to vendors who are knowledgeable of the scope of services, responsive in a timely manner, efficient at producing the deliverables, proficient in their area of expertise, and deliver the project assignments as scoped and scheduled. And vendors will have equitable opportunity to work with Metro. So a little bit about the methodology. The RFQ solicitation opened in May of last year, and the notice of intent of award went out in October. These contracts contained over 50 services with compliance to over 19 agencies. These contracts are primarily for NDOT and Chime, but are Metro-wide contracts. There are 2 ways to award work, both round robin and mini proposal. The round robin method will rotate between the vendors sequentially, and the mini proposal method will contact those vendors for services applicable to their contracts and solicit for mini proposals that are reviewed by subject matter experts who review and score the mini proposals. So these over 50 services that were named in the solicitation were then sorted into 9 groups for awarding the contracts. The 9 groups are shown on the screen, and the 30 contracts were awarded based on the vendors' submitted proposals that were evaluated and scored based on evaluation criteria in the solicitation. Each of the vendors' contracts named the group of services that the vendor qualified for with their associated labor classifications and applicable rates. So as you can see within the planning service, these are just some examples. There were about 25 of the 62 named services that were grouped into that planning category. For design, there were about 12 of the 62 services that were lumped into the design category. Then you've got the traffic signals and electrical. There were about 7 of the 62 named services in that group. Then construction, engineering, inspection, and operations and maintenance was grouped together. Communications had 4 services, which were community engagement, branding and design, marketing, and public relations. Then you've got the development services, which were site plan reviews for anything development related, as well as multimodal transportation analysis, or MMTA reviews. Then you've got grant, loan, research, development, and policy coordination. That was a group. Then you've got the survey, CAD, GIS, LIDAR, and traffic volume and speed collection. And then the last of the groups was program management and strategic planning. So as I mentioned in the beginning, these contracts have an extended contract term. Metro standard contract term is for 60 months. However, leadership determined that an extended contract term would be required, as some of the projects may have longer durations. So these contracts have a 3-year initial contract term with 5 one-year renewals for a total potential contract life of 8 years. For the 15-year CHIME program, obviously at year 6.5, it affects not only CHIME, but the rest of Metro government, right? At year 6.5 of the 8-year term, a competitive solicitation will be issued for the remainder of the CHIME work. So in preparation of the contract execution, NDOT has written a standard operating procedures for use of these IDIQ contracts. Depending on the scope of services to be solicited, there are 2 methods to be utilized. As the name implies, the round robin, you rotate through the vendors 1 through 30 sequentially. We will use the RFQ ranking order to start, and then after all 30 vendors have had the opportunity to have work, then the 30 firms will be re-ranked by dollar value, and that would continue as more work assignments are added. This is the fastest way to get a purchase order, and with from scope writing until contract or PO execution, not only in Oracle Cloud, but also in Capital Project Management System, that's about a 3-week process. So the other method of solicitation would be the mini proposal. And this is where you have maybe more of a specialized service. You're going to have this little 5 to 10 page proposal. You're going to get a group of subject matter experts to review the proposal, score based on evaluation criteria. And so obviously this is a little bit longer duration. This is about a 4-month process, can be quicker, can be slower, just depends on the scope of services. So for NDOT funded projects, we will primarily be using the round robin approach, as this provides the most equitable distribution of work between the vendors. But we can also utilize the mini proposal method at our director's discretion. For CHIME funded projects, the CHIME Chief Program Officer has to sign off on the scope regardless of the soliciting department, and they plan to use both methods of awarding. For TDOT local programs, TDOT has only approved the mini proposal method. And then lastly, all the other departments, while they may or may not follow our standard operating procedures, on a yearly basis, we will be doing a splash report to run all the purchase orders that have been issued against the contracts. So that way we can provide procurement with that equitable distribution between the 30 firms on an annual basis. So obviously performance is definitely very important. We will be tracking performance throughout the life of the project as well as at the termination of the project. And we plan to utilize Metro's procurement performance tracking forms, as you see on the screen. And so that was a very quick overview of the process. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer or get other people or get back to you.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate it. So we have each of these individually up before us. And if you have any questions about an individual one, I would ask that you hold it until we get to it on the agenda. But I think since there are so many of these and they all have a lot of the same questions, any questions that we have about the process, about them as a group, would be appropriate now. I saw Councilmember Allen. I saw Councilmember Parker. Did anybody else want to get in the queue at this point? Okay, Councilmember Allen, you're recognized. Oh, did it? Yeah, it should. It says you're green on my screen. Let me try it now. No, all the microphones are just gonna not work on us today, folks.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. So,
Oh, I'm sorry, just for the record, because people at home cannot hear it. Councilmember Allen asked if you could explain the round robin process and the dollar ranking.
yes, so as each vendor is assigned a purchase order, then that dollar value would be recorded and tracked we're either looking at a spreadsheet or there is some software. Haven't quite determined what path to go down, but it will be tracked. Obviously, Excel will be the easiest. That'll be the starting point if we get software. And so every time, when you go, the first one gets the first purchase order and then you go all the way down. Then and if for some reason, that the vendor says, they can't meet the schedule or whatever, and they get skipped or whatever, right? So then once you get to the 31st project, then they would be re-ranked, and that person that got skipped would obviously be at the top because they wouldn't have any dollar value. And then every new purchase order would just be added, right? And then those get re-ranked. So that way, whoever had the lowest dollar value is always at the top to get the next project up. Does that answer your question?
Did you have any other questions, Councilmember? Okay, Councilmember Parker? We're having to double up. Yeah.
There it is. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I was wondering, these contracts, so if we have these agreements in place, does, like, for something that might be a little bit of a faster evolving, nimble space like LiDAR technology, where you might see new vendors pop up in a market just because somebody made an investment in some tech and it's a very small firm and they're new, would having these agreements in place with like legacy Metro partners, would that prevent us from bidding stuff out and like getting new vendors, like a LiDAR example of like a new company that just pops up?
Right. So it would, if they weren't a sub on to one of the prime 30 contracts, or weren't somebody that could be added as a sub to one of the 30 contracts, then yes, they would have to wait till that next, which is one of the reasons why we didn't want to have more than an 8-year potential contract term, right? Because we know that new technology is going to come into the market. And so we want to give those people opportunities. But there's obviously an opportunity if they wanted to add that as a sub to one of the 30 primes, then we wouldn't be missing out on that. But if it was, if all 30 primes have this, the old LiDAR technology, then I would say that is a potential, yes. And I'll defer to my procurement friends in the back if I'm misstating this.
I don't know if I'm loud enough. If we needed to add them as a sub, we could do that. If not, we could address it via amendment.
But in that case, addressing it by amendment, one of the 30 partners here would have to agree to that amendment. So they would have to like agree to allow that market share to that competitor.
Right, and all amendments also have to come to you all for council approval.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question, it looks like the admin
I think
table
the
wants to.
Administration would like to take a question.
Councilmember Parker, the other way I would answer your original question was this doesn't prevent NDOT, Choose How You Move, or any other Metro entity from seeking a competitively bid contract outside of the IDIQ. So while this only covers A&E, LiDAR acquisition, some of that technology, that wouldn't necessarily be covered under this. So while we have these 30 contracts, it does not in any way limit our ability to go out competitively for a new contract.
Thank you. That is clarifying.
Okay.
And then my other question, if I may, Chair, is just kind of a bigger picture question about, the capacity that we have in-house to do some of this engineering work, specifically, knowing that we have a dedicated funding stream for a lot of the street engineering, road work with Chime. How are we, thinking about these contracts, and actually expanding staff capacity within Metro to do a lot of this work?
I'm going to defer to my director who just stood up.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you, Diana Alarcon with NDOT. It's going to take some time to build up that capacity, but that is something we are doing over the course of the next few years. So, but a lot of the work that we will be doing is going to extend over a long period of time. Typical road project can take anywhere from 5 to 10 years to do. So what we didn't want to do is get stuck in the middle of something and have it come to an end. We wanted to make sure we'd be able to follow through on it completely. At the same time, we'd be building up capacity within the department. So yes, we are working on both at the same time. We're still going to need the support of our consultant teams to help us make sure that we're meeting the timeline that expected is for Chime.
Thank you, Chair.
Did anybody else on the committee have questions? I have a few, but I want to make sure everybody else is able to ask theirs. All right. All right. Sorry. We're like coordinating on screens up here because we have to hit everything twice. I was a little confused about the structure sort of between prime and sub-consultants. Can you explain how that works under here? Because it looks like there's like a 2-tier structure for the prime and then the sub, and how that's being handled if you go out and you get, say, a prime consultant and then they're using subs for that. It seemed like there was maybe a different tier structure in there, and I was hoping the department could explain that.
Are you talking specifically for the labor rates and classifications?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So we wanted to, because we knew that it was going to be a multi-award contracts, we wanted to simplify things as much as possible for invoicing and for finance, as well as getting, making sure we're going to get purchase orders very quick, as fast as possible. So that's why there's prime rates, and then there are sub rates, and then there are general rates. As we tried to standardize based on all the existing architectural and engineering contracts, as well as any, future labor classifications that we thought we could need. And then, we can always add more labor classifications via amendment if necessary. But we feel like the list is sufficient for right now. But yes, there are prime, and I think most of the primes are subs on somebody else's contract. Out of the 30 primes, I think there's 119 subs total, and they vary based on how many subs per contract. But we were trying to simplify the invoicing and the billing process, which is why we standardized the labor classifications and rates.
I think, does that standardization allow for differentiation among expertise or efficiency? Like, I'm thinking seniors, the more senior you are, the more expertise you have, but also as we sort of look at the evolving nature of engineering and what we're seeing in the market right now, and we look at AI in particular, it is making significant efficiency gains that are often seen more by senior engineers than junior engineers because of that knowledge. And sort of how is that sort of differentiation going to be classified within the billing?
Well, so everybody has to provide the backup billing, so that way we can make sure that, certain firms are not getting too much profit or too little profit, right? We don't want them to charge a lower rate person at a high rate, so we're going to have to, having those standardized labor classifications helps to try to narrow down, okay, is this person, where is their expertise and where did they actually fit? There was a lot of analysis done in standardizing the rates as far as comparing all of our existing metro contracts, as well as many sister cities and sister states, to try and get a very competitive pricing that every firm would, be on board with, where, yes, some are going to make more profit than others, potentially, depending on what they pay their people. But we were trying to be fair across the board.
I think the director would like to add something too.
Thank you, Chairwoman. A lot of that is defined in the task order. So when we actually go and deliver and say, hey, this is the work level we are expecting, we also define the different levels of expertise we're looking for. And then they actually are pricing back to us, because the price is consistent with everyone, the number of hours that each individual job position would take as part of the task order. So we pretty much have it well defined in the task order, the overall cost and the expectations. What we can then do is say, well, we don't feel like a prime is going to need, 20 hours. We think that their expertise is more QA/QC, which would be 6. So part of that is in the task order, and it's the negotiation between the project manager that's responsible for moving that initiative, that project forward, and also the contractor that we're currently working with. So a lot of that is defined as well in the task order.
And how many people do we have in-house right now who will be managing these task orders?
Well, we have them by project managers is what we have. Oh, gosh, let me think on that for a minute. I'll have to get back with you on that number because off the top of my head, it's just not coming to me. But we do have different project managers that will be handling different projects. So for example, if we have a project that is much bigger, we may have project managers that are only handling 4 to 5. It's really based on the type of project that is and the size of the project and how much in-depth timing it's going to take. And then we may have project managers that handle anywhere from 9 to 12 projects, depending. So like some sidewalk projects and maybe some repaving, stuff like that may be a little bit smaller and not require as much as detail as what you would find in the beginning of a project. So can I get back to you on that number? It's just not ringing at the top of my head. I apologize.
Yeah, and I think my other question is, I know we've used IDIQs in the past, but I don't think at this scale. And so I am curious sort of how many of these we've had open in the past few years at any given point and how those are managed.
I would have to defer to procurement. I know NDOT has some as well as other metro departments, so I would think that there are.
But has NDOT had like 30 or has it been like 5? Like how many have been open and operating?
Metro has had any number of contracts open at any one time. We've probably had 5 to 10. This is a project of much greater scale than anything we've had in the past, which is also why they have more capacity to manage that in this set of contracts than they've had to manage those previous sets of contracts.
And on those project managers, I think, you know, one thing we typically see outside the IDIQ process is a defined scope, right? And you'll see that in the RFP or the mini RFP, but I'm curious how we're thinking about capacity and how they're going to manage to appropriately check the billing and keep it within the confines of the contract if we're going from less than 10 to 30 tomorrow.
So I'm not sure if council's aware, but we've actually been working very hard on implementing a program system, which we're calling the Capital Management System, the CPMS. And that's really going to be a very helpful tool for us. So everything's going to go into this system that's a capital project. It's going to be listed by project. And there will be, the task order will actually get entered. They will be paying against that. So they're going to know exactly what's going on at all times. So as they get an invoice and it gets approved, before it gets approved, they will review it to make sure, 1, that they're billing at the correct rates, 2, that it's meeting the correct number of hours based on the workload that was done, and then they're inputting the system to say it can move over to finance. Finance does another QA/QC, central finance does another QAC, so we have many different checks, and that's what's really great about this new management system that we're currently implementing throughout, not just my department, but multiple other departments throughout the city and county.
And when is that system going to be live?
Well, we're currently migrating new, current projects over to it, and as new projects come online, we are actually adding it today. So we're started using the system.
I think I still have some concerns about the overall number and our ability to manage these and to keep them within the appropriate scope without, you know, if we're not hiring a bunch more people to manage these contracts, for example. And then also, how are we on the round robin going to make sure we're picking the best firm, the most efficient firm for the job? I guess how are we going to?
As part of the solicitation, each of those firms was qualified for the services. So there'll be essentially like 9 round robin list, right? Because not every firm got all 9 groups. And so if your scope of services is for planning and design, I think there's, you know, there might only be 28 of them there, you know, or if it's just for construction engineering inspections, then you're going through a list of the ones that were qualified for that. So you are picking firms that were qualified based on the qualifications that they submitted in their proposals when we reviewed them and scored them. So because we've qualified them all as equal, that's why the round robin approach is quick at getting purchase orders.
How were we able to determine that they were equal?
Because of the evaluation criteria that was listed in the solicitation, because all 62 services were defined in the original RFQ, and then there was evaluation criteria where everyone scored based on what was submitted in the proposals.
Yeah, you should be live.
Go for it. Okay, there we go. I'm loud if not, so we're not.
We still have to get you on the record. We can all be loud. It unfortunately doesn't matter.
The subject matter experts from NDOT and from across government evaluated all 30 offers that were there. Those offers are split into 9 buckets. So if you are awarded and you are able to perform work in the bucket that you're in, then you are in Metro's view qualified to perform that work. And you couldn't be issued work outside of the bucket that you were awarded in. So we don't, I hear the concern about qualifications, but if you've been, these are all firms that are well established within the city and the region, and if they were awarded in that bucket, then they've been through a very rigorous process.
Okay, Councilmember Benedict, I think you had a question. You got a...
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question along these same lines, my arm went up because what happens if they underperform?
So then that's where the poor performance sheets would come into play, right? And so that's why it's an initial 3-year term, because we're going to evaluate that performance across the 3 years and determine if those 1-year renewals are applicable or not. Like, did they meet the intent? Did they deliver on time? Did they meet all the things, right? And so that's kind of why the contracts were set up with the 3-year initial term and the 5 1-year renewals, rather than just giving them a blanket 8 years, right?
What if, so I guess, so what, are there going to be quarterly KPIs, or are we going to do it on like a per job basis? So let's say that Benedict and Company doesn't exist. Let's say that Benedict and Company has, one for that bucket, and then I go out there and I show up with my shovel to do the work, and I'm not good at it, even though I said I was qualified and good at it. But what happens if I underperform? Am I immediately reprimanded for that? Like, not reprimanded, but rather, like I'm kicked off the job immediately, and then therefore out of the process altogether?
Well, that's why these performance forms are very important. So there's one that you do throughout the life of the project where you're constantly giving that vendor feedback of like, hey, you're missing your schedule or whatever the issue might be. Then the one at the end, you probably can't see it on the screen, but it does have numbers where you kind of score them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 based on their performance. And so we'll be keeping track of those records. So like if there are poor performers, then there could be a potential like sit out period where you talk to them and get them to rectify, like, is it their personnel? Is it, what's the issue, right? And you want to make sure that they're going to get in compliance and provide you the top quality service that they signed up for. That they promised, right?
Cool. Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councilmember Koopman, you're recognized. Yeah.
Ooh, knocking my water over. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for everyone who's coming out to present on this. A couple questions, and they're probably going to be redundant. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this a little bit. So I guess start simple. So what's the total? I know there's 30 contracts. Are they all each 44 million? Like, what's the total value across all the contracts?
Right, yes. So each contract has a contract ceiling of 44.2. So that doesn't mean that they're going to get 44.2 million over 8 years, right? It is a ceiling. But yes, that was the ceiling set per contract.
So this would authorize spending with the system of $1.3 billion approximately.
Right, but like NDOT is funded by CSP, right? So we're already appropriated funding. Chime has their appropriated funding, so do the other departments. So we can only spend what you all approve for us to spend.
So you can only spend what council approves to be spent. And if this were not to pass or wasn't brought forward, what would be the process currently to do something like this?
I'm going to defer to Zach in the back.
Sorry, I just want to make a point that contracts do not encumber funding. So you could put a blue $1 billion on there and it wouldn't encumber any funding. The funding is not encumbered until you issue a PO, and you couldn't issue a PO beyond what you have the funding to issue.
And so appreciate that. And so if, but if we didn't have the IDIQ process in place, would each of those contracts still have to come before council for approval? And this is just kind of blanket approving the contracts, but we still have control over the funding? Is that what I'm hearing?
The contracts are before you because of the term. Any contract that has a potential term beyond 60 months requires council approval. And so that's what's effectively before this body.
Got it. Okay. I think that's all for now for me. Thanks.
All right. Anybody else have any questions right now? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our agenda. Thank you very much. I'm going to do the consent agenda first, which is very short. I have items 2, which is RS 2026-1787, 3, RS 2026-1794, 4, RS 2026-1795, and then 39, 40, and 41, which are BL 2026-1259, BL 2026-1260, and BL 2026-1261 on consent. Does anybody want to pull any of those off consent? All right, seeing none, I will read the consent agenda. Item 2, RS 2026-1787, a resolution extending the provisions of Chapter 5.11 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws as enacted under Ordinance Number BL 2021-972, sponsors Alan Ewing Toombs and Evan Siegel. Item 3, RS 2026-1794, a resolution accepting the terms of a cooperative purchasing master agreement with Scranton Manufacturing Company, Inc., DBA New Way Trucks for refuse and recycling equipment for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County Department of Waste Services. Sponsors Toombs, Evan Siegel, Hill, and Allen. And item 4, RS 2026-1795, a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to accept new public sanitary sewer main and sanitary sewer manholes for 3 properties located at 2183 Kidd Road, Fly Road Unnumbered, and Kidd Road Unnumbered in Williamson County, also known as 2183 Kidd Road Phase 1B. Sponsors Horton and Evan Siegel. Item 39, BL 2026-1259, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to accept new public sanitary sewer main and sanitary sewer manholes and easements for 2 properties located at West Division Street, Unnumbered, in Mount Juliet, Wilson County, also known as the Cane Break Subdivision Phase 2B. Sponsors Horton and Evan Siegel. Item 40, BL 2026-1260, an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to accept new public sanitary sewer main, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for 2 properties located at 9913 and 9917 Maupin Road in Williamson County, also known as WMN Regency Hills. Sponsors Horton and Evan Siegel. Item 41, BL 2026-1261, an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to abandon existing public sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements, and to accept new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer manholes, and associated easements for 9 properties located at Dickerson Pike, Gateway Avenue, and Marie Street, also known as the Pike Phase 1. Sponsors Parker Horton and Evan Siegel. Can I get a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the consent item, say aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? So that is 8 in favor, 0 against, and 0 not voting for our consent items. All right. The next item on our agenda is item number 5, RS 2026-1801, a resolution urging the Electric Power Board of Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to terminate the employment of Teresa Broyles-Aplin as Chief Executive of the Officer of the Nashville Electric Service. Sponsors Benedict and Johnston. Can I get a motion?
I'm going to move to approve with the comments, and well, let me just move a deferral right now.
Well,
but I do have comments.
Can I get a motion to get it before us?
Move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, colleagues, after the horrific ice storm and the challenges to its response, I know that everybody in the room wants a process of evaluation that's thorough, credible, and beyond reproach. First, I'm grateful for the tireless work from our NES employees in the field and in supporting roles, and I'm so appreciative that so many came out today. This was a massive, and I'm also grateful for your families. I know that they gave time to the city as well. This was a massive storm, and your work is valued. And in no way have my constituents called for actions against you. My resolution is targeted solely at leadership. However, having heard from many of you directly, including today, I now understand that this resolution feels like an attack on you. That was never the intent. Your around-the-clock work is appreciated by the entire city. I've now spoken, colleagues, directly with the CEO, and we had a very productive conversation. She shared with me that immediate actions have already begun. Communication, some of those are communication protocols are being reevaluated. Grid reliability and storm hardening investments are already under review, including targeted undergrounding where appropriate. And importantly, important to me very much was senior leadership changes are underway. And the critical referrals program, I know a lot of us found that failed. It's being modernized. It's been, a lot of my constituents had concerns about that. It now has been modified on their website to better serve medically vulnerable customers. So also, as we know, the board is working to approve an independent review, and that review must be conducted, I believe we all agree, it must be conducted by individuals with no close ties to the board or to city leadership, and it must be fully independent. All records must be preserved in accordance with public records law, and transparency is expected. We need that information in order to determine how to move forward. So for me, a one-meeting deferral strikes the right balance. It gives us 2 weeks to evaluate whether these actions are truly taking shape while also keeping this body actively engaged in oversight. With that, I move for a one-meeting deferral.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the explanation from the sponsor and especially the acknowledgement of the incredible hard work that the employees of NES did to get service restored to half the city, which is an incredible undertaking in very difficult circumstances. Just with regard to a one-meeting deferral, I believe that the information from the independent review is really important to us to make any kind of decision, and I would just I'm not moving it, but I'm suggesting that perhaps a 90-day deferral when we expect to have results from that would be more meaningful than a one-meeting deferral, and I would be interested to hear from colleagues on that option.
Right. Oh, well, she didn't move.
I didn't make the motion.
But Councilmember Benedict would like to respond.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, and it's something I've given thought to as well. I think one of the challenges that we have is, making sure that we control this process. And I think that, in 2 weeks from now at the next meeting, if it seems like an indefinite deferral is a good decision then, I think that would be a better approach. Right now, I want to make sure that we can continue to control this process locally. And so I think that, keeping our hands on it while it's fresh is important. And, I'm absolutely open to something, but I'd like to just start with a one-meeting deferral for now.
Anything further, Councilmember Allen? Okay. Councilmember Cash, you're recognized.
Thank you. I think I am in the same place mentally that Councilmember Allen is about this. Like I understand what a one-meeting deferral does in the rules, but I don't know that a one-meeting deferral is going to get us to where we're ready to make a decision in 2 weeks. Can I ask the administration table to, is there a sense of the commission and what kind of timetable that looks like, the review of the mayor's commission?
Council member, I'm chair. The commission is designed to have initial report back within 6 months and final findings recommendations within 1 year or a shorter time frame if the chair dictates.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Coopin.
Maybe. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Chair. And appreciate the discussion. Appreciate my colleague supporting a deferral of this. I hear my colleagues with a longer deferral. I tend to think that, as Councilmember Benedict said, keeping the control with us, to me, feels better. This is a ever-changing situation. There's new information coming out every single day. We have things that are very time sensitive and timely, so I would be in favor of a one meeting deferral just to see what the next couple weeks bring. At that point, if we need more time, if we need another one meeting deferral or longer, we can do that at that point. But once we defer it farther out, we really can't bring it back up if something were to come up that would warrant this to be brought back before us. So I'd prefer to have a one meeting deferral now. Let's see what the next couple weeks bring and then go from there.
Anything further? Councilmember Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder if the sponsor would consider a complete withdrawal and then just wait for a couple of weeks, see how things are, see what it looks like, and then we're still in control. We can bring it back at any time, but this takes the accusations from us directly to them and allows them, and it's going to take probably 6 months or better to even get a real answer anyway. So doing it for one meeting is really not going to tell us anything at all.
Councilmember, do you want to respond?
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to respond to that. One thing I didn't talk about was when I spoke with the CEO, she was supportive of the one meeting deferral. So I think at this point it is, I think that's the right approach relative to, again, I don't want to risk creating the perception that we're not actively exercising our authority. And I think a withdrawal says, well, maybe Nashville's not going to take care of this. I think that it's important for us to say as a city, we're going to work together to make sure that we are taking care of our people and we don't need anybody else telling us how to do that. We've seen that. Now, maybe somebody doesn't have authority to do that and maybe we end up in court about it. But I think right now I'd rather take the approach that we've got our own house in order. We're working on it. Again, the board is looking for that independent review, so they're putting a rush on it. Hopefully 90 days is the goal that I've been told. I think all of us have been told that. It's been said in the press as well. And so I think, again, I'd like to see what happens within the next 2 weeks, and it might be nothing. And I absolutely, here on the camera in committee, as my colleagues know with my integrity, I will move an indefinite deferral if things seem like we're going in the right direction. And if it also, or, maybe even potentially a withdrawal at that time. But at this point, I think a one meeting deferral is a 2-week deferral is going to allow us to continue to see what's happening with the board, with the company, so that we can understand, the changes that are being made. There's been a good response from the CEO. She and I had a very productive conversation the other day. And again, when I spoke with her, I told her, that a one meeting deferral is, potential, and she said, thank you. So with that in mind, I think I've made my case, but I understand my colleagues may have differing opinions.
All right, anything further from anybody? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of a one meeting deferral, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Okay, on to our favorite listening session, which hopefully we will not have to listen to today unless Brian tells me we absolutely have to. Item number 6 through 35 are the IGIQ contracts. These were read into the record at the last meeting, so my understanding is they have been read. I do not have to read them again. My preference is to take these as a group and to do them as a consent item unless anybody on the committee would like to pull one and do it separately for any reason whatsoever. All right, all right. They have been moved, seconded. Is there any discussion on these at this point? Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you. I was attempting to search one of the contracts for this information, but the word term was in there like 300 times. So the renewal terms, is that where both parties have to consent, or how do after the initial term, the year renewals, do we need both parties on board for that to happen?
I think I see somebody in the back coming to the microphone. You're recognized.
Yes, the initial term is 3 years. There are 5 optional 1-year renewals, and that would be at mutual consent.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay. I would just add that at this point, I am not comfortable passing what is approval for roughly a third of our annual budget on contracts with no project scope that is defined. and with an unclear path forward as to how that scope will be defined. I think what we heard today from the department is that they are working on that and there is software for that, but we don't know who's going to staff it, how many people we have, and if we can manage that. I would feel more comfortable if we could get that information before we approve these, but I don't know if where the rest of the committee lies with respect to that. Councilmember Coop, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I share your sentiments. I feel like this is a good effort and a good concept to save a lot of time and bandwidth trying to get these approved in one batch, but at the same time with a kind of lack of scope and like you said, a valuation at about a third of our budget. I recognize that money still has to be appropriated, but I do like the oversight that our body has over individual contracts and scopes and things like that. And as Councilmember Parker said, there are lots of ever-changing environments. So I would also support some more time for kind of to get some more information before us.
Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my understanding is that this is for a multi-year contract, and so it's not going to all happen in this year's budget, which makes it a third of that amount in one math equation. And maybe I'm not understanding that correctly. And so I guess what I'm trying to think through is, will they be dealing with 30 contracts immediately, or is it going to be 5 this year and 10 next year and 15 the following year? If someone could talk about the ramp up, that would be helpful to me.
Good. Who would like to talk about how many of these they anticipate each year? Well, I guess it's different. We certainly have the choose how you move ones, but also the NDOT ones. So maybe if we could get somebody to speak to both, that would be helpful. Are we going admin table? Sorry, we have to, the microphone has to go on down there. So I just know which way to, yeah, admin table. Okay.
So thank you. Councilmember, you're right. First of all, this isn't authorizing any spending. Second of all, these are contracts that would be available for approved projects that the council has already authorized or that has been authorized through another mechanism. So these aren't contracts that would come through council one by one. As to the breadth of them, that depends on how widely they're used in Metro, the extent to which Chime uses them, the extent to which NDOT uses them, and will really depend on how council is authorizing funding. And then these can be used for the architectural and engineering portion of those approved projects as needed. Did that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, right. We don't have a motion before us other than to approve. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. If these are going through today, I'm going to vote against them. I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. We have no idea of how many they're going to be, how we're going to manage them, or, what projects they'll be used for in the future, and how to make sure we're using the right people and preventing project creep and all that goes with that. The idea that just any random department can use them too means we don't have the full breadth of information. I am happy to wait on that decision, but we don't have a motion. So, Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. I think that we do this, and I just asked the administration for confirmation. I think we do this type of award all the time, like with Amazon, like with procurement. Oftentimes we'll say, here, we have a contract for this, and then when a department has a specific need for usage of that contract, then they say, okay, we have a vendor for that. Now I can buy them from that. So I think that we do this broadly throughout government, and I think that Metro Water has these types of contracts as well already. So those are things that when I think about the concept here, those are things that come to mind for me.
Yeah, I think for me that the concept is used, but we're talking about engineering services for a very large amount of money, and a department that is new and has not done this in this vein before. It's not paper that we're buying, right, where we just get the cheapest copy paper. And it's not the water department, which has frankly been around for a really long time, doing these in very specific ways and have their vendors that they're used to working with. I saw Councilmember Parker and then Councilmember Coop and Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Chair. So just on the timing and the what action this committee takes today. So first I guess, a timing question for the administration or for NDOT, how would a deferral impact project delivery, or what would the impacts of a deferral be in this process?
So the impacts of the deferral are our existing IDIQs are coming to their contract life. So we would not have architectural and engineering services, or we'd have to get emergency purchase orders, or, I mean, there would have to be some mechanism to continue work so that we don't stop designing and planning and inspecting all the things that we do.
And are those expiring in a batch? Like they all have the same date?
They don't all have the same date. We've already had some expire. One expired in December, one expired in January. We have some expiring in March. We have some expiring in April. We have some expiring later this year. There are existing, we have a batch of on-call traffic. We have a batch of complete streets. Those are the two that are coming to mind right now. But, and then there are construction engineering inspections, IDIQs. So those are the ones that are coming to mind that would be coming up for expiration. So that's what this deferral would impact.
Okay, thank you. And Chair, can you, what would you, to become more comfortable with this, like what, is there something that could be accomplished in 2 weeks, or do you feel like the issues are bigger than what can be addressed in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think if we could get an idea of how many people are currently running these contracts, how many there currently are or have been in the past year, I don't mean like if they expired 2 months ago and so they don't exist, we're not going to count them, and how this is going to be different, and how many projects we anticipate running under these every year. I think that would be helpful. I am very worried on Choose How You Move and NDOT projects generally that we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. We're talking about how we're going to spend money before we have a plan for what we're spending it on and the mechanism for deciding how we're going to spend it. And if we could get a little bit more clarity around the guardrails over the next 2 weeks and the questions that couldn't be asked today, I might be more comfortable.
So I'm trying to think through what our options are as a committee. The legislation is also going to Budget and Finance, I presume.
That's
so
right.
it could advance without a recommendation of this committee, regardless. So I'm not sure what the best thing is. I'm just trying to think through how this might go.
I think Councilmember Coopin also had wanted to speak. So if you're okay, Councilmember Coopin.
I think, thank you, Chair. Councilman Parker and I are kind of mulling over the same eventualities, because I do believe that this is something important to think through. I do think that having the body be able to weigh in on it is important, but I also don't want to have contracts be running out either. I guess a question I would ask is, how did we come up with this number? Where did the $44 million number come from?
Sorry, I had to dig out the math. So the contract ceiling was determined by 8 years of NDOT CSP funding, which was assumed at $70 million. That's on average what we get in CSP. So that was $560 million. And then 8 years of CHIME funding, which is about $1.65 billion for those 8 years. And so then A&E is about 30% of our budget. So we took 30% of that, where 70% is obviously construction and materials. And so then we took the 8 years of NDOT plus the 8 years of CHIME times the 30%, divided by 30 contracts, and that came up with $22.1 million. Because they're metro-wide contracts, we doubled that. That's where we came up with $44.2 million per contract.
I'm glad that was recorded so I can do that math later. And so, and any department would, if this passes, any department would be eligible to tap into these contracts and that fund limit.
Yes, so all metro contracts are, any metro department can tap into that contract ceiling.
And if CHIME really needed to use $1 million out of one of the contracts, but another department had already tapped out the $44 million, at that point, would that preclude CHIME from using it?
Not necessarily. I mean, if there was one vendor that needed that additional contract ceiling, then we would have to come back to you at council for a contract amendment to raise that ceiling. But we don't anticipate running up to the 44.2 million within the first 3 years of that, the contract with all 30.
And what would the impact be if we pass this, but with a lowered ceiling from 44 million? Let's say if the ceiling was 10 million per contract.
I'll let Zach answer that.
Zach's been wanting to answer. Every time you start to talk, he stands
do.
up, and then you answer his question, and he has to sit back down. So you did him a favor here.
It's because it's Fat Tuesday. We're all in a good mood. The answer is yes. We could. That would be fine if you wanted to adjust that number. That's not an issue for us.
All right, that's all I've got for right now. Thanks.
Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I have a question about scope, maybe, I don't know, to the administration, but are these, like, what is the scope here? Is it limited? I want to, again, understand, I think the same question we're talking about, right? So when these contracts, should they get approved, what's the scope there? I don't know where to direct that, Chair.
Amanda Deaton-Moyer, Finance, with my procurement colleagues that I hope will back me over there, is the scope here is indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, indefinite demand, right? So what the scopes were actually bid, they said, we want these services, these types of services. Christy just went through all the IDIQs that NDOT already has. We have the sidewalks, we have the on-call traffic and numerous others, and they're all bid this way. Here are the types of things that we're going to be looking for, and we look and we say, are you qualified? And we look at them and say, we are qualified this way. So when we're talking about what is the specific scope, well, we've got lots of projects. This council is approving projects and talking about projects pretty regularly. But these contracts are not specifically for any of those projects. They are qualified to meet them. And so the scopes are this, we can't come to, we need this many widgets, we need, or this, that. I mean, it is really about a whole design thought process, and they are qualified to bring that design. Does that make sense?
It's helpful, thank you. I mean, I guess I'm still kind of like, all right, if my hairstylist is qualified to cut my hair and your hair and everybody's hair, and so all of us could go get a haircut from her, no matter, but we also could say, I want to sit in the chair next to her, right? Like if I have a contract to do that. The scope is still, I guess what I'm getting at is, I like analogies. I'm still trying to understand that. So when we so these contracts are in place, let's say, that, I mean, could you just kind of clarify what you said there? It still didn't quite resonate.
So, and Zach, maybe you can help me with this. What I was going to say is you may see a lot of people that can cut your hair, but only 2 or 3 can cut it the way you want it. and you want your hair to look a certain way, and that person over there, you've seen what that person can do, and you don't want that. So that's what the whole RFP process is about, is identifying the people that are available and have signed up themselves, and we have gone through a long process to make sure that they're actually qualified to do so.
Just add to that is that indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity is about what they're delivering. That's not actually about the scope. Indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity just means that we don't know everything that we're going to know over the next 8 years, the next 5 to 8 years, in order to be able to, that we don't know all of the work that's going to have to be performed under these contracts. But I would take it a step further and say it's not just, the scope of work here is not just you can cut my luscious hair. The scope of work here is who's going to do shortcuts, who's going to do medium cuts, who's going to do cut and color, who's going to do mohawks, who's going to do, this is a very specific scope of work. The A&E contracts are very specifically scoped. If you go back and you look at that RFQ, that is a very long scope. Those 9 buckets are very specific about what work can be performed under those. It's so specific that each item performed under those those 9 buckets actually has a cost that's attached to it. So when we go out and do those mini RFPs, as Director Alarcon said earlier, we're not going out to collect cost. We already know every single task that could possibly be performed under those 9 buckets. We know it, and we know how much it's going to cost. The only thing they're competing on is how many hours it's going to take them to do that. So these are very specifically scoped contracts. And they're metro-wide because all contracts are metro-wide by default. We don't enter into contracts just for NDOT or just for water or just for general services or parks. We enter into contracts. When you contract with the metropolitan government of Nashville and Davidson County. So that's why it's important that they be available to every department. And no work also could be issued outside of those scopes because every PO will have to come through the purchasing agent to be approved. So not only will it have to come through the project managers and NDOT, the purchasing agent will have to sign off on the scope of every PO that's issued to make sure that it matches what's in those 9 buckets.
I think what I'm also remembering is back in 2020 when I chaired a special committee on sidewalks, one of the findings from that was that every time that we had to build a sidewalk, we had to put it out for bid. So we had to go through the entire procurement process. And so what I think I'm picking up here is that we'll have that sidewalk vendor in the bucket. We don't have to just go say, all right, give us a quote for this 1 mile stretch or even this 100-foot stretch. We actually have that sidewalk vendor in the bucket that we know, and we can just quickly get to them. Here's the project, get back to us, and then we can move much more quickly. That sidewalk one was a huge one that I recall from the time when actually it was the prior vice mayor said, sidewalks are a problem. Why do they take so long? And one of the reasons that I came back, Faye DeMassimo was here, it was a good long time ago, and we realized how cumbersome this process is for something as simple as sidewalks, which the community really wants. And that chime says, we want to deliver. So I'm supportive of this. I understand the concerns, but I just think that this is going to help us be more nimble so that we can get more infrastructure done throughout the city. And I feel comfortable that the oversight is there. I mean, I asked some questions earlier. I'm listening to the dialogue here. I'm comfortable that the accountability is there, both for the vendors as well as for the department.
All right, Councilmember Parker, and I think we'll wrap it up. It is a Tuesday, even though it should be a Monday.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to try to make a motion that might satisfy more folks in the room and would give us kind of another bite at the apple, which would be to approve today on second, but to re-refer to this committee for third reading.
Okay. That has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Oh, Councilmember Allen, didn't expect that. Go ahead.
Will the chair have to read them all again?
No, they have been read into the record. I'm not reading them all again. I'm apparently the only one who took the time to do that, and we're done with that. So, Councilmember Benedict, yes, ma'am.
I just would hope that also we pass it on consent so our vice mayor doesn't have to read them all in as well.
All right. All in favor of passing this on second and re-referring it to this committee on third, say aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? That is 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Yeah, I think you can batch them up. That's my understanding of the legal advice. And I'm going to say that on the record so that he has to say it on the record if it changes.
Member, the body can act without objection in many ways.
There you go. Now we have a preemptive ruling. So approve with re-referral to committee. Okay. Item number 37, BL 2026, an ordinance amending section 1564. Oh, 36. Sorry. I thought we were 35. Oh, you're right. Of course you're right. Like, why would I say it like that? But still. Item 36, BL 2026-1255, an ordinance amending chapter 1308 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws related to sandwich board signs in the public right-of-way. Sponsors Huffman and Horton. Can I get a motion? Do I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Parker, do you want to be recognized on this?
Is this the sandwich board legislation?
This is the sandwich board legislation.
Okay, thank you. We have the lead sponsor present, so I'll defer to him for the first comment.
Oh, there you are, sir. Sorry, it's you. Go ahead.
Apologies for my delay. I'm obviously not on the committee, but I would like to ask that someone on the committee make a motion for a 2-meeting deferral.
All right, there's been a motion and a second for a 2-meeting deferral. Any discussion on the deferral? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. All right, any opposed? Any not voting? That is 8 in favor, 0 against, and 0 not voting. Item 37, BL 2026-1256, an ordinance amending section 1564-131 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to permit landscape architects to prepare and stamp plans for Tier 1 and Tier 2 residential infill development. Sponsors Evan Siegel and GAD. Can I get a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Oh, sorry. Can I get somebody to move the amendment? The amendment has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay. Now we have to move, can I get a move as amended? It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on it as amended? All right, I just want to thank the water department for doing this. I know sometimes we forget the poor landscape architects, but they can certify stuff and really understand their stuff when it comes to stormwater. So I really appreciate that. All right, all in favor, say aye. Any not voting? Oh, any noes? Okay, 8 in favor, 0 against, and 0 not voting on the amendment and as amended. Oh, well, we already voted on the amendment, so but I don't think I said it out loud, so I was just saying it, sorry. And then the final legislative item, item 38, BL 2026-1258. No, sorry. It should have been on consent, but I missed it. An ordinance approving Amendment 2 to a contract between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and Hydromax USA LLC for valve exercising and hydrant maintenance service. Can I get a motion? Can I get a second? Anybody? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Any against? Any not voting? Okay, 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. I had one update, which is you all should have received in your inbox something from Walk Bike Nashville. They are asking folks to adopt a spot for a memorial for those who have been killed, pedestrians and cyclists, in the past year. That email would have come from Izzy Witt with Walk Bike Nashville. As of this morning, there are 3 interstate locations that have not been claimed, which they don't expect to be claimed because of safety reasons with decorating on the side of the interstate. But outside of the interstate in District 2, a pedestrian, Robert L. Jones, his spot has not been claimed. District 7, Rustin Nieder, his spot has not been claimed. District 8, Coriona Harding, her spot has not been claimed. District 16, Lorenzo Mendoza, his spot has not been claimed. And District 38, an unidentified pedestrian, that person's spot has not been claimed. Walk Bike Nashville has materials to decorate the spots where these folks died, either on foot or on their bike. And so if you are able to adopt a spot, I would encourage committee members to reach out to Izzy and let Walk Bike Nashville know that you're willing to adopt one of those spots that has not yet been adopted. Does anybody have any further announcements or anything they want to add at this point? All right, Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will just note if our council director will confirm that the solid waste subcommittee will be meeting 2 weeks from now, wedged in somewhere around 5 o'clock on the Tuesday of the first March meeting. It will be short, and let me know if you're a subcommittee member what you would like to have on the agenda. Otherwise, I'll set the agenda.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Parker, do you have an announcement?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, you may have been about to do this, but I just wanted to remind members in the general body of the Thursday's meeting at 4:30 with the Boring Company to learn details about their proposed tunnel.
Thank you, Councilmember. I totally forgotten to remind folks about that. It does not feel like it is already that soon. But yes, this committee will meet again on Thursday, in a specially called committee meeting. And with that, we are adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network.